Today we're talking about the responsive grid. Yeah. So, in the Next Gen Web Design System Guide, on the page 8-point responsive grid template, you'll see that I've started some responsive grid component template documentation. Let's take a look. It's been a minute. So, what I have here is the responsive grid breakpoints and their templates. So I'll go back and talk about the breakpoints in a moment. But right now, I just want to talk about the grid real quickly. We have inside of Figma here in the design system library, we have a no grid. We have Hmm. Seriously, we have a no grid. We have a 12-column grid, we have an 8-column grid, we have a 4-column grid, we have a 3-column grid, we have a 2-column grid. And I have some instructions on why you should choose what you choose for the default grid when you're starting. And what are some of the properties and some of the variants that you may request for the component moving forward? But right now, there are 5 sizes, and there are 6-column grid options, and more properties can be added and expanded, oh, as you know we mature as a design system. So what I want to do is before I get into like how to use the templates, but this is a little idea of what there are. There may be, I don't know, maybe like 56 or so options or something like that in this component. So before we get into that, let's talk about the responsive design breakpoints and column grids based on the screen size of AssetMark's currently supported sizes. And that'll give us a little bit more context. So what you see here is this is for those extra large screens. These are the people that are using their, quite expensive monitors. Some people have 4K monitors now. Some people have some pretty interesting technology, and that's making the resolutions go higher and higher. And what I'm saying here in this example is to use a 4-column grid, it says no, any size larger than 1920 pixels wide will have the same grid expectations with a 4-column grid, the same grid expectations as a 1920 pixel wide screen. So the margins here will not be based on any like fixed size. They will just grow after that center value of 1920. So anything above 1920, you're going to use a 4-column grid. So I'm going to turn that grid on now so you can mm, so you can see that. So here we have the 4-column grid, and in between these gutters here are 24 pixels, and the margins are also 24 pixels. Just trying to keep it uh, simple for now. And you will see that if you've been following my cursor, I'm moving it around here all the way to the right of the screen. You'll see that it says 4 columns auto. And if I wanted to see like that 8-pixel grid, that's that's an 8-pixel grid right there on top of a 4-column. So you're going to use the 4-column grid style to see this, and the area in between the margin and the gutter and the gutter will be the size of the tile, and will help you to determine your designs based on the screen size. Now, next up, we have 1920, and 1920 is also using that 1920 is also using that 4-column grid. So, in the 120 rem wide, again, that's for the developers. They'll also be looking at this information, and you'll be using that 4-column grid. Now, in the documentation, in every single step of the way, you're going to see that I have a screen capture where it says 4-column grid, grid styles. So to put that into context, when you come to this and you're looking over in your panel over here, and you're looking and you're like, okay, what is my grid? And here you're seeing I have the layout grid in the panel, and I'm going to turn on the 8-point grid, the 8 pixels, and I'm going to make sure that the form 4-column is selected just so as it matches in the documentation here. If you need to, if you want to, if you just don't want to look at this color, feel free to change it. It's n- um it's no big deal, but I do recommend keeping the opacity down. So that's how you would do that. And as I mentioned, we are using 24 gutter, and we're using a 24 pixel margin. Now notice here that if I mouse over this, I can get into the spacing properties of the design system. I do not need to think about what on the 8-point scale, what are the numbers that I can use for kind of like scaling this up or down in the spacing and keeping it on aligned on the 8-point grid. Here you'll see that these are numbered. So if I want the spacing to be 32 pixels, if I want the spacing to be 24 pixels, this is where I can dynamically quickly change that. So I'll just and say I want 32, and then I want this to be here 30. Let Okay, let's make this like really stand out. I am going to go to 40, and then you're going to see the difference, and I feel like it's kind of like hard to tell. So I'm going to um turn off the visibility of the 8-point grid and just keep the 4-column grid, and you'll see that now I have like wider, and if it's still not like easily visible, that it is customizable to do this if you need to, but I do not recommend unless there is a need, and then we can discuss it further. So margin is 40, and then let's make the gutter 4, and or let's make the gutter 12, or let's make the gutter 24, or let's make the gutter 16. And this is realistically what's going to happen. You're going to make the gutter 16 and have the margin 24 if you're going to be working on a tighter design. So we're going to have a compact design and a regular design. So the compact design would be 16, and which is currently what is being used in the dashboard, I believe, and some is being used with 24. So I'm going to turn that to 24. Now, I didn't have to go in and type it, I didn't have to touch my keyboard. All I can do is just drag and drop. I've got this um, quick and easy way to update the grid if I need to. So here is the 1920. 1920 uses a 4-column grid. Our default size here that we're using at Asset Mark is 1440. And in 1440, we're using a 3-column grid. So you can see that if I select this and I go looking for the grid, it says 3 columns. And it's the same idea. If I really needed to change things up, I still have the ability to do so. I urge you to use caution, um, and have a good reason if you're doing so. And if needed, we can work on adding that to the design system. But there is some flexibility here if you need it, is what I'm trying to express. Now, this is our most common size that we're going to be designing at. So in the 3 column grid, again, the space between this gutter and margin here. So this is the margin, this is the gutter, and the space between this gutter and this gutter, they're all equidistant, but this is giving us the dynamic sizing that we need when we're designing, say, for only 1/3, 2/3, or the whole. And if you need some help with the math, we can do that, but I do have this componentized, so the math should just be right there for you just when you use this grid. So here is the next size that we're talking about, and that's 1024 by 768. This is also using that 3 column grid. Now, when we flip it and we do the 768 by 1024, we're going to start using that 2 column grid. And again, they're all the same. You're going to go to your panel here, go to the layout grid, and find that grid and get that information right there. To turn the grid on and off, I'm simply holding down Shift and G at the same time, pressing again, and there they are back. Now here is just some versions of the grid without the header and footer, without the component. This is just a basic grid. We also have other basic grids here. As you can see, there are a few options. Some of these are legacy, some of these are here is an 8 point grid horizontal. And what this can do is help you if you need to align and snap to grid easier. You can use, especially when you're having small text or you're working with chips or tags or something, you can just turn this on and then turn it off when you need to and be able to snap to grid with that. And then when we and this is like an iPad Pro 12. I do have some just if you needed to test for prototyping reasons or anything for and then this is a 1 column grid. So if say this was not a desktop, but was um say 360, definitely not by 900. Let's go with 480. And so this would help you if you are we do not have a mobile first template at this time. The smallest size we go down to, as you saw, was 768 at this time. And but if you do need a grid for mobile, this is a 1 column grid that would work for mobile. Uh, and there is a 2 column grid that can work for mobile. I do not recommend using any of the other larger numbered grids. And is an 8 column grid that is available. So say like for I recommend this if you need a different grid to help you with your designs. This is an 8 column grid. This is good for the tablet. And there is a 12 column grid, but I recommend the 8 column grid for the tablet. So there are many grids here available for you to use, and how you use them on the responsive grid is with a responsive grid template. So let's look at some of these. Now, this template here has, let's just go find it. I have it like laid out for you here, but let's go find it. So how would I find this grid if I'm responsive maybe? Yes. You can also type in grid and it would come up. So let's do it. grid, and there's a bunch more things that come up. So we've got two components here for the grid. We've got the responsive grid component, and then we have like a starter guide that kind of like helps step you through the process and gives you a little bit more guided component. But let's get into this one first. So in this component, I'm just gonna zoom in on it a little bit more, and you see here that it says grid none. So I mentioned earlier we have no grid. So we have grid none. We have a header. This is 1440. This is our default size. And a footer. This is the new footer. This is all aligned to the 8-point grid. It has the linked footer. This is new in this blue background. This is your starting point for most designs with the header and the footer built in and the navigation. And from there, we can decide to change our grid if we want a 12 column grid. For this is the 1440. We have um, let's go back to so this is the 1440 12 column grid. We can do a 3-column grid on the 1440. We can do a 2-column grid on the 1440. We cannot do a 4-column grid on the 1440. It does not support that, and that's why it jumps. And so I'm going to go back. It's a little bit smart that way. And we can do none. So we've got 8, 12, 3, and 2. And none is the same as 1, really. Almost. The 1 has a margin. So say I want to do that 1920 size. If you're not sure what you're dealing with and you're working on a Mac, what you can do is you can just go up to your Mac up here in the Mac icon in the upper left corner, go down to your system preferences. There it is. And I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to see I have a 1728 monitor, and I have a 1920 monitor, and I have a 1080 by 1920 monitor, all being displayed right now. So the 1920s would work on this screen. This 1440 would work on this screen, and then the tablet size would work on this screen, just natively, just based on how my resolution is. So this is kind of like putting some context into what these numbers are. And as you can see, there are built-in sizes and that are inside of the OS, and that you can show all resolutions, and we can start to see how many common resolution sizes there are. I just saw something randomly, like in 2015, there were like, I don't know, hundreds of different like resolutions of people coming into our site all at the same time. So everybody is not necessarily using the same resolution that their screen is packaged in default. Some people are moving their monitors around and or moving their viewports around. So this is why we're designing for responsive, and that puts you into some context of how these numbers are coming in and putting into the design system. So again, we have the footer and the header. And now I want to show you, we've been looking at like relatively big and how this gutter is, and we've been looking at relatively big sizes, but let's get into the tablet sizes. So um this tablet size, this is the desktop, and this is, let's just use this one for an example quickly. So here you see, let me just, I'm just going to duplicate this and see how it's snapping to grid and keeping alignment. And because I'm using 24 everywhere, it immediately pulled me into that 24. That's what happens when you ensure that your preferences are set to snap to grid and you use that 8-point nudge and you the settings, set the settings in Figma to do so. So here I want to see like the difference between the two. So I'm going to go to 1440. Again, this is our default size, and then this is our small size. And you're going to see, let's bring this down a little bit. You're going to see that here we've got multiple items in our navigation. And here we only have 4, and then we have a drop down for more. So that's one of the advantages of using this component. It has another difference is how this says copyright 2024, and this says copyright 2024. And that is by design. And this is giving you the starting point framework, hopefully, for ensuring that you've got the grids already here. Again, I have turned off the visibility on grids. So, and I'd also said none. So actually, um, I didn't mean to do that, but let's just see. Um, so I guess I'll take this one and I'll turn it to that small size, and I'll turn it to 4 columns. And there's also 8 columns, but I can't do 8 columns on the small, and that's why it reverted back. So let me go back to, I guess I was doing 4 columns. So this responsive grid component, if you can't do something, it should like respond by not allowing you to do it. So if you have a 1440 and so is this 1440? It is 1440. Say I think, oh, let's do a 4 column grid. Now we decided that that is not an option. In 1440, it's only a 3. And when we do that, I cannot select it. It will automatically default to the last one that I did. So I'm going to go back to that 3 column grid, and I'm going to go back and turn it to 1440. And again, if you need um, to find it, I'm just gonna type in grid, and we're gonna see there are other grids here. We can discuss them in other videos, but I can drag it or I can click on it and insert it. I can like select which one I want, select which grid I want. So the first thing I would do is select which grid I want. Okay, I want a 3 column grid. And because the default is 1440, it will snap to that in the options. And then you just click insert instance, and then you can just start designing. If you have any questions on this or anything else, let me know. I do have extensive documentation in Confluence and in Figma, and I will put those links in the video in the corner below. So happy designing.